Mm, yeah, the dynamics of the aura and soul guidance. So that is the last of the auric series. We're laying down the six different components, and this is the third aspect. The first being the Sandalphon technique and dealing with physical blockages. The second being auric waves, dealing with the physiology and the processes of the body, the emotions, and mind. Here we have the dynamics of the aura. The reason why it's called soul guidance is, for one, you're cultivating, you're fine-tuning through the aura the the way that you process information, to not just go from conditioned past responses and repetitive patterns. We do things when we want to bring change, or we want to heal, or we want to spiritually grow, and we keep doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different outcomes. And there's a component of that in the energy body, but here this aspect is in the intellect. And it has to do with observation. It has to do with uh, applying yourself and then refining that. It has to do with intuition, and then it has to do with detaching, and the ability to pull in information, utilize it. Um, that sounds very straightforward, but a lot of times with intellect, we're just going to our past conditioning, and we have these things that cause us suffering. We have these ways of thinking that came out of conditioning that we wrestle with, and we're tired of them, but we have a hard time stepping away. And so the reason why it's called soul guidance is, this is the aspect also that directly impacts your karmic imagery, and it's how karma manifests. And so a lot of times our repetitive thoughts are either conditioning from our past experiences and other people and school and things like this, but also our past, our past before we were in a body. And we have these things that come up in our life, and we struggle with them. We end up repeating them over and over again. And you could say that, to a certain extent, when somebody hasn't cultivated intuition and they incarnate, their destiny is kind of set, right? You have some things that are in motion that are just going to play out and be repetitive and repetitive and repetitive and repetitive. And as much as we think, oh, I'd like to stop this, I'd like to break out of this, I'd like this to end, we keep doing the same things over and over again because we approach it from the place of intellect. And we have to be able to cultivate intuition, which is tied to learning, it's tied to innovating, it's tied to stepping out of our repetition and starting to have some sort of spontaneous new thing happen. And so karmic imagery is a thing that is actually in our blood. It's in our bloodstream, and it circulates through our body, affecting our physiology, flipping little switches in the body so that our physiology kind of will be impacted by the karma, right? Or the karmic imagery, like the little karmic like stimuli that flows through the blood. And then it also will impact the emotions, and also it eventually causes us to have certain thoughts, certain thought processes, certain ways of thinking, and sometimes the ability to think in new and different ways, and the inability to take in pieces of information. Like, if you think sometimes where you've maybe been saying something to somebody and you say it as clear as possible, as simple as possible, and they just don't hear it, and they don't even really realize that something's being said. Like they know that there's words and they know that there's English, but it just doesn't sink in. a lot of times that has to do with karmic imagery. It's not that the person is being dense or just ignoring what you're saying or not acknowledging what you're saying. There's karmic imagery that won't allow that information in, right? And so sometimes when we have like these blind spots in our lives or these areas where we have a hard time maybe breaking out of it, part of what we're doing is we're acting out on this karmic imagery. And in this particular aspect, you're working the impure aspects of the directions. You're not just stimulating the directions, you're actually purifying the negative tendencies. Um, and so by going through and doing this, it opens up the pathways for you to rapidly learn when some piece of karma comes in. You know, there's a couple of ways of accelerating your ability to like pay off karma or move past karma, diminish karma. One is to learn. So if you don't have intuition, you're doomed to repetition. Like bottom line, there is no other way to say it, right? You're doomed to repetition. So it doesn't matter what pieces of information, what facts, what techniques, until you start learning the lesson, we're just going to keep repeating it over and over again. So this is what I term as like walking away from a situation. Walking away from a situation is the ability to either diminish the karmic imagery or take that karmic imagery and process it in the intuitive mind so that you go, okay, this repetition that I've been doing for the last 30 or 40 years, done. I'm walking away from this. I'm done. And so we kind of do a little bit of a precursor in the auric waves, like it's being set up in the auric waves, but this is where it gets like hit out of the park. So basically what you're doing here is you're increasing light and spiritual energy in the bloodstream. So the light and the spiritual energy begins flicking all those switches in your body, in your physiology in a different way. And it starts to affect the emotions in a different way, starts to affect the mind and the thought processes in a different way. And basically, you're either learning your lesson from the karmic issue, or you're able to transmute it. Um, you know, transmutation would be like if there was a difficulty with a person, you're able to let it go and detach or forgive, whatever that might be. Same with the situation, like we keep doing it over and over. Sometimes we want like a resolution in it. And part of that is because we feel we're stuck with it, right? And so by going through and working this aspect, you realize I'm not stuck with it. That's just a thing in my mind. You know, that's actually not real. And so this aspect is why they call in the directions and different traditions, why they call in before a ceremony or before a healing or before a blessing. They do some form of this a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times. And part of it is because it stimulates the ability for us to grow and evolve, to step away from our suffering. I mean, the bottom line is if you figure what is it that we're trying to do in our incarnation, it's part of it is to end our suffering, to stop the suffering. And sometimes if we really have it together, we can maybe even help or stop the suffering of some of the people around us, you know, loved ones, things like this. And so just keep in mind that karma is not a punishment. It's not like there's a person up there going, yeah, you did 5 naughty things and you did 3 good things. You still have 2 points you need to make up. It's not like that. It's more like being in alignment with your true nature or not in alignment. And what karma is simply you're not in alignment with your true nature. You're not in alignment with your higher nature. And so why it's called soul guidance is the soul starts to, over a period of time, starts to be more of the driving force that is associated with the cessation of suffering, or stopping, ending, or suffering, because it's guiding us to do what is right, right? Not necessarily what's right because of society or because I got to follow the rules. What's right for our soul development? What's right for us to grow and evolve, right? And up until then, we're simply living in a life over, it's just repeating and doing the same thing over and over again. Situations might change. We might move to a new city. We put on different clothes. We have different circles of friends, yet the same patterns are there over and over and over and over again. And so this aspect is a breaking down of that repetition so that you can step out and do something different. So the blockages in the body, the processes in the body, and then this aspect of how we're able to learn or not learn, how we're able to innovate or not innovate. All three of these things are what makes up the ORIC program, right? And so if we're not doing good in one or all three of these areas, the ORIC program is running in a pretty negative way. That's why you might have like a bad back. And you go, oh, I got some amazing therapy, and I put some great oils, and I took this tincture, and and I got this stone that I hold, and oh, my back feels amazing, and then you walk outside and trip and throw your back out again. And then you get that feeling better. And then somebody bumps you at the grocery store and your back goes out again. Like, right? Part of that is that karmic imagery and somehow not being aligned with your nature, right? And so the more that the alignment becomes apparent, the more that you learn how to step away from the misalignments and align yourself to a much higher degree. And when we work the ORIC program, we're going through and cleaning up all the past conditioning that has put the program in this place. But when you do it all together, you're basically spiritualizing your lower self, or the lower nature. You're shifting your aura from being under the drives of the lower nature, and you put it under the drives of the higher nature. It's actually kind of like more balanced. Survival for the body, the emotions and the mind are there, but also being guided by the soul, connecting with the soul, communing with the soul is also there. Evolving out of our suffering, that is also there. So that's I idea what that class is about.